Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for the Integrating Peoplesoft Test Framework webinar today. My name is Katie Bull, and I'm the Business Development Associate here at Elire. Before we get into today's presentation, I just have a couple housekeeping items to cover. All attendees are going to be placed on mute for the duration of the presentation. If you have any questions, please submit them at the bottom in the Q&A portal, or you can also chat them to the speakers at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation, and we'll get those answered at the end. Also, a recording of today's presentation will be sent out in a couple of days, and our recording today, as well as any past Elire webinar recordings, are going to be available on the Elire YouTube channel and elire.com. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our presenter, Valentin, for today's presentation.
Thank you, Katie, and welcome everybody to Integrating Peoplesoft Test Framework. Quick introduction of myself. My name is Valentin Totoro. I'm a solution architect with Elire. I have 11 years of PeopleSoft functional and technical experience, both in the finance and the HCM space. I've helped build some of the pieces to the PeopleSoft Test Framework, like the data loader tool, and I've seen every single version of PTF since 8.5.1, so I've seen it mature over the last 10 years since it was introduced. And I've built several of the bolt-ons and solutions within Elire that we actually use in a lot of our services, and I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. A quick introduction of Elire as well, for those that are not familiar. We've been in business for 15 years now, celebrating our 15th, and we have over 200 plus clients, 40 plus Fortune 500 clients. Obviously, we are a trusted advisor for many of them and a gold partner with Oracle. Okay. A quick introduction of what we'll be covering today. I want to do a quick, very high-level introduction of what the PeopleSoft Test Framework is, and then I'll immediately get into how PTF integrates both asymmetrically and synchronously with other testing tools out there and test management software, and how it can be used in various situations, really, and how I've integrated PTF. But I definitely want to start with a quick high level for those that have not seen PTF before. So this tool was introduced in Tools 8.5.1. I like to say that the 8.5.1 version is a little beta version of the tool. 8.5.2, it became really a stable tool, had all the features that you wanted to, and just progressed ever since then. I think the last slide actually covers some of the continued investment that Oracle PeopleSoft has within PTF. So we'll go through that as well. At its core, this is a functional application testing tool. So all your regression testing, be it unit testing, system integration testing, UAT, it's able to simulate and actually perform as if an actual user was using the system, opening and simulating a browser start, navigations, data entry into pages, processing reports, whatever it may be. It's able to simulate that as if a user was using the system in any environment you choose to. We, of course, with any automation, you can increase the number of tests that can be executed. We've developed various web methods to do full end-to-end testing, and you can actually loop through various transactional data on any level, from the inception all the way downstream until something is fully complete, processed, posted, received, whatever that business process might be. And really, the scope of testing really increases with this tool. You can throw so much more data at it and not just have a couple of positive or negative tests per component or business process. You can have thousands of data combinations now with this automated tool. The accuracy is another piece that really comes into play with any kind of automation. You're actually able to consistently perform the same type of testing each PUM image as you apply it, or if there's any kind of bug fix and you're developing that, you can immediately run a full system cycle if you needed to. And of course, the reduction in testing time is the big one that we're going after here with this automation tool. So it's great. You can schedule these scripts. I've done other webinars where I actually go through how you schedule them, how you can run batch files, which I'll actually show you, and run through them much quicker overnight, over weekend, and just come in Monday morning and interpret the results. Of course, there's various other pieces to the puzzle. There's coverage reports, there's maintenance reports that are actually pre-built and delivered from Oracle PeopleSoft that actually help you to gauge if you have coverage and gaps within your testing based on packages that are coming into the system and changes that are being applied via the PUM cycle. So there's various things to kind of maintain the life cycle of PTF as your system matures and as these PTF scripts mature in parallel with your system. Okay? And one thing to note that all of the information, be it the scripts, the script data, the logs, each time a script is executed are stored in the database within a Peoplesoft database. 25 tables, 26 tables dedicated just to PTF scripts since Tools 851 was released. Here, I think on the right-hand side is a little quick video showing you some simulation of, I think this is a smartphone size screen, how it actually is able to form factor test Peoplesoft as well. Obviously, that's the big key to Fluid is the responsive theme, that it's capable of resizing itself and not that pixel perfect that Classic was. So, and one thing to note here, like I mentioned, you do have a lot of reports that are out of the box that help you to gauge, okay, this change package is coming in, it's got a couple of bug fixes. Do we actually have PTF tests for that? Are we able to analyze? How do we have enough data that we're throwing into these tests to actually test these components out completely with all the changes we're about to apply, all down to the people code level? You're able to analyze all of these, and it's not just like the huge compare report that you see in App Designer. These are tailored compare reports just to the PTF tests or just to your system and the changes that are coming into your system. So you're also able to generate data. So and you don't have to sit there and try to figure out with each test cycle what data you need to use for PTF testing, or constantly sitting there and updating your data. One of the tools that I built for them, help them design, is the data loader tool. So that's able to actually query data right from the system, any system or environment that you're testing against, find a pending item, find an open period, find anything you really want, and actually use that as a variable within your test or pass it along to various tests. So there's a lot of scalability and automation beyond just the script automation that you can do within this tool. So it's very closely tied to the rest of the people tools and how it works. So, and that's everything I had for the high level. There are other Elire learning sessions that we've done to go a little deeper into high-level introduction, but we really want to focus on the integration of PTF. So the first thing to note, and kind of the most important thing, is there's no API to PTF. It's its own tool. It's a client within the Peoplesoft structure, so there is no RESTful or SOAP communication with other tools. But what it does have is the ability to run PTF scripts from command line, and that actually gives you a ton of power, and that's what I'm going to address in these next couple of slides. Okay, and really, just because you don't have an API doesn't limit you. What they've done here, and this is actually a very clean and simple architecture, is not only can you just call the PTF client, but you can set parameters. What environment is my PTF configured in? What test am I running? Who am I simulating logging in as? Are there log files? Do I want to echo a result back? So they give you full flexibility to actually perform a lot of the functions within it. And because of that, you can actually dictate the script, the test case, which is a data combination, like I said, the environment or the user. And there's various things you can do with that. Obviously, I'm going to focus on how we integrate to other systems, third-party systems, be it a test management software, Selenium APIs, or you can actually spool up various environments. So if you want to kind of run parallel testing or spread the load, maybe you have several thousand tests and you want to spread the load over multiple Windows machines, you can actually spool up different environments. And with these command lines, actually create a service within that Windows virtual machine startup and tell it which tests you want to run and actually control it as you spool up these environments after you're done with testing. Of course, all the reports get sent to the Peoplesoft database. You do all your reporting on that level, and then you just decommission those spooled environments. So there's many ways to do parallel testing with this method. And of course, executing from third-party systems. And of course, you even are capable of building XML documents. So we have our own XSL style sheet. So if you did want business to actually validate the results and not just a pass or fail for each given script, maybe you want some more granular information about this is the confirmation page, this is the journal that was generated, the voucher that was generated. You can actually have those in a web-based report, pretty much. You open up the XML, it looks like a web page with a header explaining what was tested. And then in the body, you have detailed descriptions of this is the ID generated, the users who were simulated, the IDs, the amounts, whatever it may be, including screenshots of the pages. So there's various methods to reporting on the execution outside of just calling the test. So the first one and the most basic method is just the asymmetric PTF execution, which is just the raw, double click on the batch file and it runs the PTF script. And the way this works is you can actually just obviously CD to the directory wherever your PTF is configured or installed or copied to nowadays. And what you will do is actually just call the PTF executable. So that's just the exe file there. And after that, you just define each of the parameters. So CD to this is the environment where your PTF is configured. This is the user that I want to simulate. You'll also have a password. This is the test I want to simulate, the data combination. So you can also dictate for any given script different data combinations you want to execute. So I want to create this kind of journal, then I want to do an inter-unit journal, or post it, or don't post it, or whatever you want to do. And then you can also dictate the environment. So that's what this EXO equals. So there's various ways to cut and splice it, and there's many parameters that they allow you to do. Most of them are optional, some are required. These, I think, are the basic ones that you do have to have just to execute a test, but there's additional, more granular parameters that you can have. A lot of this is defined in the People book. If you go into the Peoplesoft People book, it's actually People Tools People book. You go to Lifecycle Management, Test Framework, and then within the executing section, you'll actually see executing from command line, and you're actually able to see all the parameters, the values, the Boolean functions, anything you need to run these tests with this simple command line. So this would actually be the entirety of your batch file right here. You might have an echo off or something at the top, but this would be the entirety, and you literally would just double click on that batch file. It's going to headlessly start PTF in the background, and then you'll suddenly see the browser open, start playing back the scripts. At the end of it, after it's run all 4 of these tests, it closes out and disappears. So that's kind of the beauty of these batch files. Now, another thing you can do is echo back the results. So this is where the power really comes in, and how you can actually integrate that with software management, testing management software. So the same way you would actually start the test, define your environments, the users, whatever test you're using. But on top of that, you can define the log and also this IRET, or whatever you want to declare as variable, but it can actually echo back the result. So whatever happens in that PTF test, yes, everything passed okay, the process ran, it posted, that returns a pass. So it returns actually a code of 0 to this variable within the batch file. Maybe you can do some transposing of that if your specific management software, for it to equal a pass on that line, you have to transpose it to equal capital PASS. So you would just have to do some matching, if this, then this, and then obviously it would show in HP Quality Center or any other tool that it's a pass or fail. So the return is very, very powerful. An additional thing you can do is the log. So if you wanted to see more granular, not so much the XML reports, but actual breakdown of what happened, you can actually control where the log is written to. So this XML log gives you kind of the pass and fail, more granular information. You can control, obviously, the IDs of this, the naming convention, and of course the path in the directory. So gives you a lot more control. Now you also have the ability to do execution options. So if you're spooling up environments, test move environments, you don't even have to open up PTF to configure where you're pointing to. There's brand new features within PTF that just got released where you can actually even configure PTF dynamically as other command lines, pass that execution option, and immediately start testing against an environment. So even more and more flexibility has come into play now with these later versions of PTF. Now, I was talking about how you can use ALM, Jenkins, HP Quality Center, which is the same thing as ALM, but what you can do is you just create a test. So you create a brand new test from the test plan. You select the type as VAPI-XP-test. This is one of the drop downs. I believe it's like a plugin that you can download, and I think most out of the box now just have it installed. And then when you select that, it just goes through one of those simple wizards. I think most of the things you don't have to fill out. And then once it builds kind of the structure, then you can actually put your code in there, run this batch file. These are the parameters, transpose anything. And then what you will have for anybody that interfaces your test management software, they can just go to the test plan, pick which test they want to run. And these would be actual physical PTF tests, be it unit tests or end-to-end tests, they will just press play on their ALM, not even knowing PTF exists. PTF will, of course, headlessly execute the browser, bring back the results into ALM, and you just see the passes and fails right here without ever knowing what the heck PTF is. So if you have QA teams and functional users that maybe you don't need to train PTF into, but they do leverage ALM as their management software, then they'll actually be able to leverage PTF without even knowing what PTF is. Yet it still does the automated testing for you. So very, very neat. And the same method goes for Jenkins. Works exact same way. You would just set up the test type that actually executes a batch file, and you're good to go. You would use the same method. For Selenium, so Selenium, this is, of course, the other open source automated testing tool that exists out there. If you do test other systems that might integrate into PeopleSoft, you can actually call PTF tests. So maybe the first part is like a Chronos timekeeping system. And then once you're done with the Chronos testing using the Selenium tool, maybe within your IDE, you build a little call that says, okay, now that I'm done here, it's, pushed information to my PeopleSoft system. Now go and run my PTF tests. You're calling it all from Selenium, but then you're executing PTF tests, which are echoing back results, and then it continues on with another third-party system down the road. So you can actually start integrating these very easily with that command line logic and how it actually works. So this is just a quick snippet that I had that actually deals with that and shows, just this is the little variable that holds the path of the test, and obviously execute the command and echo back the results in some kind of stream. So, and you can also, another method is the reverse. So instead of using a third-party system to call a PTF test, you can have PTF call a third-party system test. So PTF actually allows you to define, and this is actually in the People Tools Lifecycle Tools Test Framework directory within any of your PeopleSoft environments, if you have the security, you can actually set up different scripts in there. These are executable jar files that actually enter time first. So within your PTF test, you would just execute that command line that runs that jar file, executing your Chronos time entry 3 times, and the PTF test continues on. So they're kind of reversible. You can call PTF from another system, or you can have PTF call other executables. There is security around this, and it has to be run on the server, and it has to be a Windows server. So there's some stipulations there. Actually, I don't think it has to be a Windows server. This can be any server. Windows itself, PTF itself has to run on Windows though, right? Because of the net framework. So another piece to this puzzle is load testing. So PTF was not designed to be a load testing tool. It can extract rudimentary performance testing pieces. It can keep track of how long a test took from start to end and extrapolate exactly what the duration was. And maybe you just run the same test in different environments and figure out, oh, our environment with the indexing or views or materialized views is not working, and it's actually getting slower. You can extract that user experience performance testing, but load testing, you need another system, and there's obviously tons out there. One that I have leveraged with PTF is JMeter. It's just an open source system that exists, but what I've done is, instead of building scripts, load testing scripts manually, I actually use PTF to build my load testing scripts. And the way I do that with, there are several tools out there, but within JMeter itself, you can actually set up a proxy server and configure your Chrome or Firefox so that it actually goes through that proxy, lists, a local host, like this example is 8181. And when you execute your PTF script, it obviously goes through its normal path, where the PTF script on runtime calls the web driver, so Chrome driver or Gecko driver for Firefox. And before, obviously, it hits the browser, that's going to go through the proxy and actually record a functional test within the load testing tool. And of course, it's still going to execute on the browser, but it's going to record that functional test within a JMeter. And then you literally have a one-to-one copy between your functional testing, regression testing, and your performance testing. And now in JMeter, you have pretty much the framework built, and you can actually just do, your threads, simulate the users, and do that real performance testing against your system. And the beauty here is, down the road, if your scripts totally change, you don't have to sit there and spend hours and hours trying to figure out how to fix a JMeter script. Just throw it all away, build them from scratch, and obviously you would manipulate your PTF scripts, make sure those are working okay, press play, and it'll rebuild the JMeter load testing script for you, and you're good to go. And then you immediately start a performance testing cycle. So it's almost a way to bypass record load testing using your functional scripts. So it's a very neat little solution that works pretty well, as long as you configured the listeners okay, and the proxy server includes correctly. So this is kind of the last slide. I know this was a really quick presentation, but I did want to mention the continued investment that Oracle PeopleSoft has within PTF. So this is their testing tool as well. So this is the actual tool that before every POM image, be it the financials or HCM, this is what they use to run all of their testing before it goes GA. So it's a great tool for obviously anybody to use out there. There are some pre-built scripts, but yeah, there's some pre-built scripts that are delivered. I think it's delivered in 8.5.5 or 8.5.4. Very rudimentary, but it is a great framework. And over the years, in every subsequent version of PTF, they've introduced new and innovative solutions. Mass update tool was one that if there was a change in your environment, it actually will identify that change and help you to mass update any occurrence of that, be it field name change or a component name change, and all the tests that might be impacted. The ability to do multiple browsers is a huge one. So now you can simulate Chrome, Firefox, IE, whatever it may be. Live data simulate extraction. So you can now point to any environment, extract data, use that data for testing, folder level security, and now actually running in the background. So with the Chrome driver, you can actually headlessly execute Chrome tests and not have it just take up your screen. Clicking through and testing the system, you can actually do that in the background. So 8.5.8 introduced those awesome features. Okay, so that is everything I had in the presentation. I'm gonna pass it back to Katie and open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Valentine. We actually had 3 questions come through, and it looks like we'll have time to answer all of them. So the first one is, can I switch between different environments during a batch file call?
You can, yes. So within the batch, and I think I covered it slightly here, you can actually do that. There's ways to even dictate or even assign a brand new environment. So if one was spooled up, you can use that execution option line right here, this parameter right here, to quickly create that execution option, which obviously defines, this is the URL that I'm pointing to. These are the users I'm going to simulate. This is the log IDs of the XML generation. So you can define that and quickly be able to switch that with the EXO parameter right here between a test, a dev, a UAT environment, whatever you might be pointing to. PTF is still going to be configured maybe in a dedicated environment, or you don't even need to do that. You can keep it in dev, play back against dev, test, UAT, and just keep all the results and scripts in that singular environment.
Thank you. So the second one is, does the PTF tool work on Linux or Mac?
So the client itself has to work on Windows. I think I covered it. It's built on the Net framework, so it has to be installed on the Windows machine, but the servers, obviously, it doesn't matter what those are installed on. The command line, these can be in any system as well. You just have to make sure you point to that server path and the actual command you're executing, but those can be anything. But the client itself has to be a Windows machine.
Perfect, thank you. And the last question is, will the automated script still run if proxy recording with JMeter is happening?
Proxy recording with JMeter. Yes. Even though the proxy is happening, this thing is just listening and interpreting what is happening between. So the WebDriver itself is just communicating whatever commands PTF sends it. The WebDriver kind of translates those, and it controls the browser. And even though this proxy is still happening, it's still actually going to be functionally testing. So you can literally do 2 things. You can functionally test as you're recording load testing scripts at the same time, and it should not affect your actual browser being able to go through the pages, extract data, do screenshots. This is just in parallel also recording its load testing script. And then once you're done with a functional testing cycle, you could immediately get into a load testing cycle with PTF.
Great. Thank you so much for everyone for submitting questions. In the follow-up email, there will be Valentine's information as well as mine. So if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to send those through. Just to wrap up here, so Elire, just join us at some upcoming events. So we're going to be attending and presenting at the virtual Reconnect conference, and that's happening October 5th through the 8th. And Valentine will actually be presenting a 15-minute demo on October 6th. And also on the same day, Elire has another session on lease accounting. And we will be in a virtual booth, so please visit us for just any information related to Peoplesoft. And also, as in addition to our Elire Learning Lab series, we have additional webinars that are going to be coming up that might be of interest to you, just on sessions of Peoplesoft OCI, building accounts payable function for Peoplesoft users, as well as OT, BI, and BI Publisher. And those links will be sent in the follow-up email as well, so you guys can get additional information registered there. And just as always, just please engage with Elire on social media. We're always posting new content weekly, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.